Hi, I'm Rachel Tepper-Paley, Digital Editorial Director at Wine Enthusiast magazine. In this episode, brought to you by Avignonesi Winery, I'm handing the mic over to Wine Enthusiast writer-at-large Danielle Callegari, our reviewer for wines from Tuscany and southern Italy. To say that Danielle knows a lot about Tuscan wine is putting it mildly. In addition to tasting through hundreds of wines from the region each year, in 2024, she was bestowed the Beatrice Torrini Journalism Award in recognition of her deep expertise and abiding love for all things Tuscan wine. So yeah, she knows Tuscan wine. That's why she's the right person to introduce listeners to Avignonesi Winery, a family-owned operation located in Montepulciano, Tuscany, that's best known for its high-quality Vino Nobile di Montepulciano. To help tell the story, Danielle chats with Avignonesi Winery CEO and winemaker Matteo Giustiniani about the winery's rich history and bright future. I'll let Danielle take it from here. Matteo, thank you for being here and welcome.
Thank you very much, Danielle. Thank you, Wine Enthusiast, for hosting me today.
Matteo, we're going to talk about Avignonesi today, and that's a name that may be, and I hope is already familiar to some or many of our listeners. But given that we're also here in order to invite as many people as possible to dive in and drink some more of your wines and learn more about them, can you give us a quick introduction to who, what, where Avignonesi is?
Sure, Avignonesi is a family-owned winery. We are in Tuscany, and we are considering ourselves a kind of a carekeeper of a piece of land where we are producing mainly Vino Nobile. So is one of the most recognized Sangiovese from Tuscany. And we do on using farming practices, organic and biodynamic.
Wow. So that's already a lot to unpack for our listeners and a lot of exciting stuff to share with them. Let's talk a little bit about Avignonesi in its context because you already name checked Tuscany, the most famous, if I could be so bold, winemaking region in Italy. It might have a fight with Piedmont and the Veneto for that, but everybody knows Tuscany. Everybody wants to go to Florence and see its beautiful art. Everyone wants to enjoy the rolling green and gold hills of the countryside there, and they know that it makes beautiful wine. But Avignonesi is in a kind of sliver of Tuscany that hasn't always been quite as famous and quite as appreciated as some of its siblings in Brunello of Montalcino, for example, or Chianti Classico. And yet it has a very deep history. And as you mentioned already, you've been working with really innovative techniques to make sure that you're delivering quality and speaking to a very contemporary audience. So let's tease out some of those details. Where specifically is Avignonesi if we want to kind of pinpoint ourselves in Tuscany?
So, first of all, Tuscany is right in the middle of Italy. So, we are in the center of our peninsula. Montepulciano is a beautiful, tiny, renaissancemental little town on the top of the hill of Tuscany, and we are 1 hour far away south from Florence, and just 1 hour half far north from Rome. So you can easily arrive in Tuscany if you go in the highway from Florence to Rome.
Amazing. So very easy to get to, easy to visit, and that's so important, I know, for all of us because experience is really where we connect with wine when we get there in person and get to see the place and the people behind it. So speaking of that, can you tell us a little bit more about the people behind the Vignonesi and its history?
Yeah, Avignonesi is a family-owned winery, and today is managed by young and international people, and also from people that they grow up and they are part of the heritage of the Montepulciano town. So it's a very nice mix. Avignonesi has a very long history as a family. Avignonesi name is who used to be a noble family of Montepulciano, and they started to produce wine in the 16th centuries. Then, actually, from the legal point of view, Avignonesi has been created in 1974. So, actually, last year was our 50th anniversary. And it was being created by Falvo family, and they were pioneer on rediscovering Vino Nobile, and at the same time on launching the new wine made with international varieties such as Merlot and Cabernet Sauvignon. Recently, in 2009, Avignonesi has been took over by Virginie Saveris, a Belgian woman, that she converted Avignonesi in what we are today. So a kind of land keeper for the future generations, and they bring in Avignonesi a lot of new practices such as organic and biodynamic. And today, we are still a family-owned winery, and actually, the kids of Virginie, they are keeping this kind of as a custodian of that vision, and they are running the business with us.
That's amazing, actually. I hadn't thought of it. I've had the great pleasure of visiting, Avignonese myself, and, of course, I've spent lots of time in Tuscany, but the way that you just explained that sort of opened my eyes to the idea of having 2 very important foundational moments that are kind of equally historic with different levels of depth. So there's the Renaissance beginning, let's say, where the wine is being produced and recognized, and we know that's a moment in Tuscany more broadly when people begin to identify territorial distinctions, appreciate them, and even legislate them. And then having this much more recent, but still substantial 50 years ago start with the family that re-identifies the quality that can be made there and then sets off on a new path to communicating that to the rest of the world. And then now this new step forward with a fresh face, but a fresh pair of eyes at the top, but also, as I know, again, having been there and visited, a group of people who are deeply connected to that long history or very touched by it, and then also really looking forward and outward toward what comes next. I think that really perfectly tees us up for talking more about the kind of beating heart of every winery in your area and also what ends up being the what in Italian you would call biglietto da visita or the introduction to this space and to Avignonesi, and that's of course Vino Nobile di Montepulciano, a wine that, as its name reveals, has a very noble lineage, but that because of the wide world of possibilities in wine, sometimes becomes hard to distinguish to outsiders. So, could you tell us a little bit about just what is Vino Nobile di Montepulciano, and then we'll talk about what Avignonesi is doing with their iteration?
Sure. So we are very lucky in Avignonesi because we have vineyards inside and outside of that tiny appellation named Nobile di Montepulciano. It's very tiny at the end because you're right. There are plenty of appellations in the world. Even though we are one of the most historical one, it was the first DOCG in Italy, so it was one of the well-known red DOCG from Italy. We are very small. We have only 1,300 hectares, so in acres is almost 3,000, and much smaller than our neighbors such as Chianti Classico and also Brunello di Montalcino. And we are very compact around the town of Montepulciano. So I would say we don't have a lot of vineyards, and inside of the vineyards, we have also Nobile di Montepulciano. The big part of our vineyards are Nobile di Montepulciano. And Nobile di Montepulciano is made with Sangiovese. For people that are familiar with the wine, maybe could be misleading the word Montepulciano. Montepulciano for us is our town, but Montepulciano could be also a beautiful varietal that we don't grow in our area. We grow Sangiovese. As an Italian, could be misleading for me as well when people are speaking about Washington. for instance, in the United States. So, as you know much better than me, in United States you have you have Washington State in the West Coast and Washington DC, that actually is your federal capital. So it's like the Montepulciano is a famous grapes for the east coast of Italy, but we are in the center of Italy and we grow Sangiovese.
That's actually an incredibly useful parallel, and I was thinking of what I was trying scrambling to come up with a good one. No surprise that you're ready to go because, of course, this is an ongoing issue. But one of the things that's a challenge about Italian wine more broadly, that is also to me the most exciting thing about it, is just how complicated its nomenclature is. It's a reflection of the fact that wine has been produced on the peninsula with great attention and a lot of understanding actually for many, many hundreds of years, even millennia. So, with all that depth of history, you end up with a lot of confusing details. But on the other side, you also end up with incredible, incredible wines. And Montepulciano, in this case, speaking of the town around which is planted Sangiovese, the grape that also makes, as we mentioned, our more famous neighbors, wines of Chianti and Brunello, is expressed in a very special way here. What about Vino Nobile di Montepulciano could make it stand out to someone who is drinking it for the first time, do you think?
Yeah, that's a key question. I have a personal story on it. I had the opportunity to work with for a very famous French winemaker, and unfortunately now passed away. And his name was Denis Dubourdieu, and he gave us a very clear definition of terroir. Terroir for him is actually a sense of place. So basically, the terroir wine are wine that are coming from a specific area, delimited, where actually the humans, so the community, is sharing a knowledge by generation on how you can manage a specific soil, a specific climate with some specific varieties. And here in Montepulciano, I feel that actually they have a long heritage on doing that, and especially on with Sangiovese that they locally call the Prugnolo Gentile, is the same varietal, and they are dealing very well with our sedimentary soil that are coming from the very recent geological era, Pleistocene and Pliocene. And our climate that actually is what we call inland Mediterranean climate. Basically, we had a very hot summer but very cool night. So it's ideal for keeping a nice, let's say, aromatic compounds. But Denis de Bourdieu provide us also very key aspect when you are speaking about terroir and then also speaking about appellation. That terroir must be recognizable and must be original and must be something that you can easily repeat every vintage, even though with different nuances. And I felt that when I came here in Avignonesi, I found immediately a clear sense of terroir in a Nomble di Montepulciano appellation, because even though we are sharing the same varietals, Sangiovese with other appellations, here in Montepulciano, the Nobile is a kind of has a kind of specific aromatic compounds, such as orange zest that I cannot find a lot in other appellations. Then, of course, we have cherry notes that are common of also other appellations, but you have also a lot of sweety violet, especially from our sandy soil, that it's very, very a kind of a marker for our appellation. And then I feel that the huge differences is in the month. Sangiovese is very sensitive to the soil, and so the tannins quality are definitely the mouth feeling. So what you can touch in your mouth are very, very easily recognizable. The attack of Nobile di Montepulciano are very gentle, polite, and probably that's why the name Prugnolo Gentile, so gentle plum. And that's due to the fact that there are a specific interaction. I don't want to be too geek on that, but actually the Sangiovese has a high acidity. But in the Nobile di Montepulciano, due to our soil, there is a kind of buffer mitigating effect on the acidity of the Sangiovese. So the attack is very polite, and the quality of the tannins, thanks to our clay and limestone, are very, very round and soft. And I feel that actually that is the main characteristics of the Nobili di Montepulciano appellations.
That's so helpful. That's really helpful for me, actually, as somebody who's trying to communicate these distinctions to people often. And a lot of the feelings we have about wine are instinctual, but it can be hard to express them. And I think what you have really articulated well here is an element that we far too often elide, and that's the question of texture. And texture is actually something I recently realized when I'm tasting a lot is the thing that ultimately stands out to you more than anything else when you really have to start splitting hairs and saying, "Okay, what makes this different from something that's just right next to it, geographically speaking or stylistically speaking?" And I think that's a great thing to experiment with, especially for people who are coming to a wine for the first time or coming to wine in general for the first time, thinking more about that and enjoying that, getting to feel that difference. When you're talking about Vino Nobile generally, you're giving us this really beautiful panorama, but you know intimately what's happening at Avignonesi specifically. And as you mentioned at the top of our conversation, you are making some decision or have been making some decisions over the last years that are about intervening in a pretty dramatic and exciting way also. What's happening with Vino Nobile at Avignonesi in particular? And then let's talk more about the other wines that you make there because you, of course, aren't just one wine. But I do want to know about your Vino Nobile to be sure.
So first of all, I would like to say what is new in the Nobile di Montepulciano appellations. And I have to say, in the only 15 years, I'm seeing the Nobile di Montepulciano appellation community that is changing a lot. That is thanks to the fact that there are new generations that now are took over of the states, and what is really new is the new project called the Pievi in the Nobel appellation, where basically the consortium created a new category of Vino Nobile that must be made with mainly Sangiovese. So instead of using also other international varieties, now we are not allowed anymore to add Merlot, Cabernet Sauvignon. So not anymore French nuances on our Italianity, and so now it's just Sangiovese and other a few native varieties such as Canaiolo and Mammolo. And secondly, finally, you are not allowed to produce Vino Nobile category Pievi with grapes that are not estate grown. So only for producing that wine, you should use only your grapes. And also very interesting is the idea of sitting together and tasting the wines and discussing about it. And so basically, there is a commission where experts are tasting the Vino Nobile di Montepulciano Pieve category, and they are having a kind of open discussion with the producers and explain why maybe the quality of the style is not there for that specific quality. Then, of course, Pieve is also a project that force the wine growers to focusing on the differences and nuances that there are in our tiny appellations. Pieve means parrocchia in Italian, parishes, I think in English, and are 12. And so are 12 Italian names to learn. But if you it's hard for me as well. But I think the key message of Pieve is the direction of new generations of wine growers that are focusing in quality instead of quantity. So I think it's really, really important. And in Avignonesi, we love the project of Pieve, and so that's give also the idea of what is the role in the wine industry of Avignonesi. We are first farmer, so we don't buy any grapes. We produce wine with only what we have in the fields. That's why it's really important to spend time in the vineyards, and to spend time in the vineyards, we have almost 400 acres of vineyards. So we are a medium large estate for Tuscany. You need to have people that knows better than us what are happening in the estate. So we use only people that are fully employed in Avignonesi estate, and they spend all year around with us. Last but not least, they are focusing on Sangiovese and the interaction with the soil. And since the day one in Avignonesi, we strongly believe that actually Sangiovese is very sensitive to the interaction between soil and microclimate. And so it's really important that also thanks to the Pieve, we can have a kind of a picture of one small vineyard made not only by us but also by other people, and we can found actually the similarity or the differences. So I think in the Pieve project there is a lot of DNA of Avignonesi on it. Unfortunately, that could be seems to be a little bit weird. We are not producing Pieve yet because our let's say crew, so the most important estate, Oggetto di Sopra, has been replanted by Virginie and the rest of the team in the last 15 years. So in that estate, we have also a piece of vineyards that are younger than 15 years old. And by rules, if you want to produce Vino Nobile di Montepulciano Pieve, the vineyards must be aged more than 15 years. But of course, we are here with the time is with us. It's a very long-term project, Avignonesi. When the time will come, we will be released our first Pieve.
Wow, that's really exciting on a lot of fronts. And the thing that's standing out most to me that I find really touching here also is how community oriented this is. And it seems to me to be related to that early history of Montepulciano also, the town with vineyards all around it, not a huge area as you again outlined for us, not that much territory overall, not that much land planted to vine, people living in the city is a strong word, in the little town at the top of the hill, but very, very close to their plants and, to the actual farming process, understanding that land and figuring out how to make the most of it, and now extending that into Avignonesi's vision, seeing how that affects the way you work together with the people immediately part of your organization. So, really both valuing them as individuals, but also understanding the very unique patrimony that they can share with you by being people who are at the same level of investment across the board. So everyone is part of this space, grapes, people, history, all kind of combining and going into the bottle. That's something that is admirable, but it also makes me really excited to try your Pieve when it will be part of our new wine landscape of Montepulciano options. As I said before, however, it's important to remember that the area of Tuscany you're talking about doesn't only make Vino Nobile, and, neither does Avignonese, of course. You have other wines that are available, especially while you're waiting for this magical cru to be ready. and I know that, in fact, your wines are universally enjoyed. So, what's available to people as expressions of Avignonese right now, and and then also what's on the horizon? How does that fit into your grander scheme of what you want people to experience through Avignonese?
Yeah, Avignonesi is not only Vino Nobile. We grow also other varieties. We like to share those varieties in two clusters. The first cluster is the native varieties, where we have on the red side, of course, Sangiovese, and then we have also Canaiolo and Colorino and Ciliegolo and Mammolo. They are completely different each other. Canaiolo is rich in color and very spicy on the from the aroma point of view, and it's a kind of our Merlot from the color and body style, and our Syrah at the same time for aromatic profile. Then we have Colorino. Actually, Colorino play a role of bringing color in the blend, literally. And then we have Mammolo. Mammolo is a strange animal because he's very, very light and elegant, but at the same time has a very, very nose peppery notes on the smell profile. It's very surprisingly varietal. And then Ciliegolo. Ciliegolo is a kind of Sangiovese, but can grow again and ripe early. So especially if you have a bad vintages with lots of rain in the September, of course, Ciliegolo is play his role on bringing sugar and ripeness on the final blend. And on the side of native varieties, but in white, we have Trebbiano. Trebbiano is like Sangiovese, is one of the largest planted varieties of center of Italy, and not only. You can have some Trebbiano also in France. They call it Ugni Blanc. It's basically one of the varieties that are used for producing wine that then goes to cognac. Then we have actually Grechetto. Grechetto because Avignonesi is very nearby to Umbria, and in the Umbria is the most important white varietals is Grechetto, that is very rich in tannins, but very interesting from long aging white wines, especially when it's aged in oak barrels. And then we have also Vermentino. Vermentino is very common in the coast of Tuscany, but now we can find Vermentino also in our area, and it's a kind of Sauvignon but with the body of Pinot Grigio, so it's in the middle. And last but not least, we have our Orpicchio. Orpicchio is a really really native varieties almost disappeared that we replanted here in Avignonese in the last 2 years. Moving to the international varieties, we had Merlot, Cabernet Sauvignon, and from the white side we have Chardonnay, and we have Petit Manseng that actually came in our estate with another let's say with a mask. It was in our opinion, we when we planted Petit Manseng, the idea was planting Orpicchio, but in the middle of Orpicchio we found some Petit Manseng. But it's a great varietal and is bringing a great acidity with those varieties, and we do not our Vino Nobile and either our Rosso di Montepulciano or Progetto di Sopra. We produce other wines that we can classify in uh, international international grapes, where we make Desiderio is 100% Merlot, was one of the first Merlot 100% from Tuscany. and the first vintage was 1988. Then we have our Griffi, is a blend of Sangiovese and Cabernet Sauvignon. We have our 50/50, is a joint venture, is a pretty unique in the wine industry, is actually wine made by two different wineries with two different owners and two different winemakers. So it's a kind of crazy project, and the Sangiovese is made by our friends in Chianti Classico in Gaiole called Capannelle, and Merlot is made by us. Together we make 50/50. From the white side we have Marzocco, is a 100 is a Chardonnay with a touch of Petit Manseng. In the last 3 years, we released a new project called Daddy, where we make a wine with only native grapes fermented in amphora that could be terracotta, pottery, or ceramic. And in that case, is a kind of gym where we are tasting a different new practices that we are bringing in the historical wine of Avignonesi.
Wow. So there's so much to explore, even for me, and I know a lot of your wines pretty well, and yet, as you're listening, I'm thinking to myself, I got to get back to that. I have to taste that again. I have to think about where I would drink that and how I would talk about it and what I would pair it with. And so I'm going to very selfishly ask you to transition us into now a little talk about how you enjoy these wines, because based on what you're telling me and what I have of course experienced here with your wines in the past, it's really a something for everyone kind of lineup. There's a little bit of everything, and it's really from what you're describing here, and again in my experience I would also add this kind of breath, and the way that you're using your grapes is designed to marry all the best things about that long history and that very peculiar and unique and exciting terroir with a real desire to make wines that people will just enjoy. So, without us getting too wrapped up in all these crazy Italian names and all of the many different ways that you could combine them, tell us a little bit about how you like to drink your wines. When, where, with whom, anything. What's your favorite pairing right now? What wine do you pop when you get back home from work, if you do, if it's not a cold beer?
Yeah, first of all, I think when I started to my journey in the wine industry, and I was, I would say, very young. In Italy, you can drink also when you are 18-ish. Uh,
I like the scare quotes, yes.
and and so I had opportunity to understand myself, so what was my taste. And I think it's really important that you are tasting without prejudice, without bias, and just taste, enjoy it, and try to understand what you love, and why. Try to think about it. Maybe could be the aromatic compounds, maybe could be the taste, what you feel in the mouth. And I think it's really important today. Is probably is the step one, because I feel that when I tasting wine with colleagues, I sometimes people are following in love with some wine that for me are not actually. I'm not a huge fan for it, but I can understand, of course, that why they love it. I think when finally you know what you like it, and I think it's for me it's helpful for everything also beyond the wine. I think today you have two way. First of all, you can following Wine Enthusiast and Daniel Callegari, that is an incredible expert, and learning what where you can find what do you like, or easily today you can asking to AI tools, and they are gonna tell you more or less which kind of wine are uh, linked with what you like. And of course, you have to focusing on also on where you are and what you are eating, because of course now the temperature in Italy are decreasing, and I feel that I want to eat something that is a little bit more rich in fat and maybe heavy. So I think it's the right timing for having a bottle of red wine, such as Desiderio or Griffi. But of course, during the summertime, when it's very hot and maybe humid, unfortunately, in Italy, it's almost more hot and humid in July. Of course, I cannot enjoy a bottle of Desiderio. Maybe it's the right time for having a Daddy Bianco or Marzocco. And I, my grandfather was a merchant in fabrics, and I had the opportunity to touch a lot of different textile, cotton, silk. I can easily understand the kind of parallelism if you want, but you can own your own. Where basically, if it's very hot, you're gonna have a linen camicia, so shirt. But if it's very hot, it's very cold. Maybe you go to something made with cotton denim or very, let's say, that can protect yourself. I think with the wine is almost the same. But it's really important not that you build your knowledge, but first of all that you learn what you like and when do you like this kind of specific wine.
Well, I feel like the fact that I'm going to compliment you now is inevitably colored by the fact that you were flattering me, so it's a little bit biased on my part now, but what you just described is I one of the best ways I've heard in a long time of explaining to people how you should interact with wine, especially if you don't have a long relationship with the product category or a lot of confidence just yet. Think of it just like changing clothes. And also, in that way, I think what you're emphasizing is not that they have to rely on my expertise necessarily, although I sure hope that people appreciate it and use it as much as they can because that's what I put it out there for. But also that they can feel a natural confidence that is born from our knowledge of ourselves, as you're really underlining. And just like we change clothes to protect ourselves from the weather or to feel more comfortable or because of the occasion, so too what we drink can be a very comfortable, low risk operation where we express ourselves through the thing that we're picking and at the same time bring ourselves great satisfaction by selecting something that's perfect for the occasion. And I really love that. I can't think of any better way to wrap up our conversation than to say, pick out a wine like you're picking out your favorite t-shirt and put something that speaks to you and that you hope speaks to other people in your glass. To that point, Matteo, before we leave each other's company, would you be so kind as to let people know how they can find your wines and where Avignonesi is represented in the United States?
Sure. Avignonesi in United States is a long partnership, is a long relationship. We are very lucky on being present in almost the entire United States. Maybe there are few of them where we are not there yet, but if you go on internet on wine searcher, you can easily find every wine everywhere, especially the Nobile di Montepulciano that actually is our flagship. And speaking about t-shirt, I would say is a kind of cotton fabrics that could be something that you can wear every day. And then also our Griffi is a blend of Sangiovese and Cabernet Sauvignon are very well distributed around United States. Then, if you are looking for something more specific, such as a Desiderio and Progetto di Sopra, maybe you should go in your independent wine shop in your town and asking for. And I hope that we are there. And if you are not, thanks for asking. Probably they will order then. And beside the joke, I feel that Avignonesi could be easy to find in United States already. And if you're not find a bottle, or if you find a bottle and you want to go on the backstage, please visit us in Avignonesi in Tuscany. We have a beautiful hospitality center in the Capezzine, where actually we are hosting almost for since the day one the people that want to learn more about Avignonesi or just take some time for themselves and enjoy the nature and our vegetable garden and our dishes and our wine.
Well, I will repeat that again because I, as I mentioned, have had the great pleasure. So I really insist that people try to find a time to go in person if they possibly can. It is well worth a trip to Avignonesi to see all of the beautiful things that Matteo has just described to us and to drink the wine in the place where it's made, which always touches you in a different way. But in the meantime, take advantage of the wide availability of Avignonesi wines and use that glass to transport you and to continue your experimentation with Italian wines more broadly. Matteo, it's been such a pleasure to talk with you today. And I look forward to the next time I get to be with you at Avignonesi to taste some of the wines that you've described here and the new things on the horizon. And I will hopefully get more chances to talk to more of our listeners about these wines coming up as they are released and available here to everyone across our beautiful United States. Thank you again for sharing with us.
Thank you very much, Danielle, for that time together. Thank you, Wine Enthusiast, and thank you to all the listeners for being here and give me the opportunity to share our passion with you.
Did this episode make you want to pick up a bottle of Vino Nobile di Montepulciano? Tell us about it at podcast@wineenthusiast.net, and we might share your feedback on the podcast. We love hearing from you and appreciate your support. Please rate and review us wherever you listen to podcasts. Remember to visit us at wineenthusiast.com for content and products that bring your love of wine to life.